Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off because today I am going to be reviewing and sharing a bit of a how to play for Dune Imperium from Direwolf Digital and Legendary Pictures. Is this mashup of deck building and worker placement worthy to carry the name of the classic science fiction series Dune? Or should this design be exiled to the deserts of Arrakis and hopefully be swallowed up by a worm? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm your host, Jeff McAleer. I also happen to be the Grand Poobah of thegaminggang.com. As I mentioned in the open, I am going to be reviewing Dune Imperium in just a moment. But first, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you subscribe, ding that bell. Because not only will it let you know when I upload videos such as this, it'll also inform you when my live stream, The Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs right here on YouTube, Monday through Thursday nights, as I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. So I am going to be sharing my thoughts about Dune Imperium, which is from Direwolf Digital and Legendary Pictures. This game is designed by Paul Dennen, with art provided by Clay Brooks and Nate Storm. It's for 1 to 4 players. Plays in about an hour to 2 hours. It's for ages 14 and up. It is arriving early in 2021 and will carry an MSRP of $50. Let's swing on over to the other camera and dive on in. So I've kind of got the board set up. And first thing right out the gate, I do want to point out, and I have heard a lot of people complaining about this as well, is the visual presentation of Dune Imperium does not knock anybody's socks off. I completely understand that. Do want to mention that there is an upgrade kit that is available from Direwolf Digital. It's actually more than the base game. The core game is $50. The upgrade kit is $55, but it includes miniatures and card sleeves and all different things. Do you need to have that? That's completely up to you. But if the graphic look of this game really bothers you that much, it is something that you might want to take a peek at. So let's tour around. I'm going to show you how this is set up. We're going to talk a little bit about gameplay. I am not going to get into every minor detail about the game. I just want to give you a feel for how it plays. So first off, this is based on the classic Frank Herbert novel, Dune. So we've got the planet of Arrakis. This is the desert planet. And in the world of Dune, we have various different houses that are vying for power throughout the universe. And they're vying for influence with various different factions. There's a lot of backbiting and backstabbing and intrigue throughout the novels in the series. And this game tries to play up that a little bit. As I mentioned in the open, this is a mashup of deck building as well as worker placement. So first off, each of the players is going to take a faction card, a leader card. And we see, if you take a look here, you can see that these have a little icon, just a single icon next to them. And what that is essentially saying is that these are not difficult to play as strategically. We do have some other faction houses, faction leaders, house leaders. And as you can see, we've got 2 and 3 icons here. These are a bit more difficult to play as. So when you're first learning how to play the game, you're going to want to stick to Paul Atreides from House Atreides, the Beast Raban from House Harkonnen. We've got House Thorvald, and we also have House Rashiz. So you can choose any of these when you're first learning how to play the game. There is a particular special ability as well as a discipline that each of these faction leaders will have. So as an example here, Paul Atreides can look at the top card of their deck at any time. And there is a starter deck card, which is their discipline. It's a signet ring. And if you play that card, it'll tell you, okay, this is what you get to do. So with Paul Atreides, you get to draw a card. You get a coin, a Solaris, which is the coinage of the universe, as well as being a ruthless negotiator. He has connections, and they get spice. And with the Beast Raban, he controls the Arrakis fiefdom, and he's brutal. So as an example, we're just going to use Paul Atreides. This also does utilize artwork that is inspired by the upcoming Legendary Pictures film, Dune, but they are not just screenshots or stills from the film. So I do appreciate that, really like that. And you'll notice that the different cards, the artwork is influenced by that as well. So we're going to have our starting faction leader, and we're going to get a starting deck of 10 cards. So we get Reconnaissance, Seek Allies, there's that signet ring, a couple of Convincing Arguments, a Diplomacy, a couple of Dune, the Desert Planet, and a couple of Dagger. So as with just about all deck building games, you are going to be adding cards to your deck, and you're going to try to cull cards out of your deck. As opposed to many other deck building games, you are not going to be culling cards a lot in Dune Imperium, because essentially you're going to have a couple of actions on each of your turns, but there's only so many turns in the game. A lot of times with deck building games, they'll go and they'll continue on to a certain point where somebody has so many victory points, whatever. In Dune Imperium, there's two ways the game's going to end. The end game's triggered by somebody reaching 10 victory points, or you run out of conflict cards. So with the conflict cards, there are 10. So in essence, you're going to have 10 turns to the game. So I really like the fact that it's got this built-in timer that either it's always a race to victory points. But even if you don't get to 10, you know that the game is going to come to an end after the 10th turn. So with our cards, taking a look at our very basic cards, well, you know what? We'll look at the cards in just a moment. Let's tour around here, because then I'll zoom in and we'll get a better look at the cards. So we've got the planet of Arrakis. So if you take a look at these different areas, which you are going to send out agents to, you have the ability to send out 2 agents in your turn. There's ways to get a third agent as well, but for the most part, you'll have 2 agents. You need to play a card to send them to a location. So this is the planet itself. We see that we've got these different icons. This is going to be the cost for you to actually go to this location. Same applies with all of this along the side and up here, as well as over here. So essentially, this is the planet Arrakis, or Dune. This is influence with the various different factions. So we have the Fremen, who are the natives of Arrakis. We have the Bene Gesserit, who are these kind of like women sorcerers, who have, they're almost like oracles and things like that. We've got the Spacing Guild, which controls transport throughout the galaxy, as well as, shipping and everything else. And then we've got the Emperor. So if you'll notice, we've got cubes. I must have bumped that cube there. We've got cubes in every section here. So this is going to track your influence on these different factions. Up here, we have the council, which is like the high council. You can earn seats on the council. You can get different things as well. And then here we have, it is the moon of Chom. So you can actually sell spice, melange, or secure contracts. So everything here is going to show you what is the cost to actually place your agent and what is the benefit? What do you get out of it? So as an example here, we've got the Great Flat, which would cost you a card that's going to show a triangle as well as 2 water. Water is one of the resources of the game, and it's not easy to come by. So we've got water. We have, if you sent an agent here, you would actually get 3 spice. This is spice here. So the smaller hexagons are 1 spice, and the larger one equals 5. The coinage of the realm, Solari, which I swear, every time I say that, I just want to sing Solari. Oh, I know. So this is the coinage. So once again, this is the Solari. Smaller ones are single, and this counts as 5. This is your first player marker, which has one of the giant sandworms from the planet. I love the first 3 books in the Dune series. There's a reason why Dune is a classic of science fiction. I'm not going to get into all the details about it. You don't need to actually know anything about the game or the movie either to enjoy this. All right, so we've got these locations. That's our worker placement. It's going to tell us, what do we get? If we send somebody there, what do we get? So if we send somebody over here, we're going to actually gain influence as well as whatever area that we go to. You'll notice here, this symbol counts as a victory point. So once we reach this spot, we would earn a victory point. Remember, the whole point of the game is victory points. You need victory points in order to end up as the winner. Whoever's got the most victory points is the winner at the end of the game. We also have this area up top here. So if you end up getting to this point, you're going to get a special bonus, which here is an intrigue card. But you'll also get this disc, and you're going to hang on to it. And unless somebody passes you by in the influence, that's going to be worth a victory point at the end of the game. So influence is very important in the game. We also have conflict. So as I mentioned, we have 10 of these cards that are going to represent our game timer, essentially. So every turn, at the end of the turn, we're going to have a conflict card to resolve. And there's actually extra cards, so you're not going to see the same exact conflict cards every time you play. So as an example, there's 4 of the conflict 1, but with our little conflict deck, we only use 1. There's 5 that we have in this deck, but there's 10 of the 2 cards overall. Now with the 3s, we use all the 3s. So we just get those shuffled up. So when we begin the turn, we're going to flip over and it's going to show us, okay, this is what happens with conflict at the end of this turn. So whoever comes in first is going to get a victory point. Whoever comes in second is going to get an intrigue card. We'll look at those in a moment. And 2 Solare. And whoever comes in third, if you're playing a 4-player game, is going to get 2 Solare. That's going to be face up. We're going to know before we do anything in the turn what we get for whoever wins the conflict. Everybody's going to start off with garrison troops. Everyone's going to have a little tracker down here as well. So this is for our combat points, our combat strength, effectively. Everybody's going to start off with 3 troops. You're going to see we have some of these locations. They've got crossed swords, crossed weapons. When we see that, that actually allows us to move two of our garrison troops to the conflict area. You do not have to engage in conflict, keeping in mind you're not going to get any of these rewards for if you don't send anybody. There are also different ways to increase your combat strength as well. So just to kind of give you an idea of some of this stuff. So here, the Great Flat would get you 3 spice. We also have 3 areas that have the sandworm. And essentially, if we end a turn and we don't have any agents out there, they're going to actually gain spice to entice people to possibly come and put agents on there. We also have 3 spots that have these little flag areas. So it is possible for a house to take over one of these 3 areas. And if somebody puts an agent there, you actually gain this. So we've got that. So here, this would gain you a troop as well as water. This would allow you to draw 3 cards. This will give you a troop and an intrigue card. Troop, draw a card, 2 spice, 1 spice. Plus, if these spice were sitting here, you gain that as well. You would take those. So we've got that. So here with the Fremen, we have you gain water and you'd be able to move 2 troops. Here, you would be able to move 2 troops and gain 2 troops. But as you see, you need to have this icon on one of your cards, and we're going to get to that in a moment. So this is just going to show you exactly what you end up getting, plus increasing your influence with that faction. That's essentially the board itself. Up here, this is the High Council. You can actually get a seat on the High Council. You can get a Mentat, which acts as an extra agent. You can get a Sword Master, which essentially gives you an extra agent for you to be able to utilize. You can only do it once per game. So as I mentioned, you can have the opportunity to use 3 agents, but it happens very rarely. All right, so that is the board itself here. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a card-driven game. So we're going to have our starter cards. We're also going to have 3 reserve cards that are always available. So here we've got the Arrakis Liaison, the Spice Must Flow, and Fold Space. These are available until they're gone, right? So there's 6 Fold Space. It is possible to not have any of these cards left, that they're gone. I've yet to see it happen, but it can happen. So those are reserve cards. Then we're going to have 5 cards from this deck, which is going to be the cards that we're going to be purchasing to increase our deck size and increase the power of our decks. So you're always going to have 5 available. If somebody buys one, it's replaced immediately from the deck. And of course, as in most deck builders, the cards that you purchase go into your discard pile. So keep in mind, it is possible for you to get some cards that, if it's later in the game, you may not necessarily get to see right away. So, and I apologize, getting some glare here. Let's see if we can. There we go. Sorry about that. Getting some glare on those cards. We'll get rid of that. Get that out of the way. All right. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to show you these cards. So as an example, this is diplomacy. So this is one of these starting cards in your hand. So you're going to see you've got these symbols, these icons along the left side here. So when you use this card in the agent phase, because there's 2 phases to each player's turn, we've got the agents phase. In order to send one of your agents to a location, you have to play a card. So as an example here, diplomacy would allow you to send somebody over here to influence the factions. Obviously enough, it's diplomacy. Give an example here, right? Dune, the desert planet. That would allow you to send your agent to an area that's marked with the triangle, which also includes the moon, where you can sell Melandra, or you can secure a contract, which just basically gives you money. So here you'll see this would be a triangle and water in order to send my agent there. So you're going to get to do this twice. So it's going to go in the order of the first player and then around the table. So as in most worker placement games, you can only have one worker in a location. So if you're going first, you're going to try to, score the better areas that you really need. And it is possible and very likely that other players, when they go ahead of you, are going to take spots that you really wanted. Okay, so let's see. Give an example here. Convincing argument. So convincing argument doesn't allow us to go do anything. But what it does give us is it gives us persuasion, which is what we use to buy the cards from the deck. So as an example, let's take a look at this. The Kriz knife or Kreis knife would cost us 3 persuasion. It's Fremen, so it's going to allow us, if we play it in the agent phase, it's going to allow us to either go to influence Fremen areas. So over here, down below where we've got the influence, or it allows us to go to a triangle area. When we play it, anything that's in this line here also takes effect. We get that effect. So we would actually get a Solare for playing this in the agent phase. Now there's also a reveal phase. And that basically means that anytime that this is used and it's not, this card is in your hand and you reveal it after the agent phase, you get this. So as an example, and this is what took a second for some of the gang to figure out. So you're going to have 5 cards in your hand to start off with. You're always going to draw 5 cards. So let's say, as an example, I've got my first card and I got to shuffle, and I've got Dune, the desert planet, convincing argument. I've got dagger. I've got Kriz knife and another convincing argument. So I already know these 2 cards I'm not going to be able to do anything with as far as my agent phase. So here I could use Dune, the desert planet, send my agent to one of the triangle locations. Use this for a Fremen influence, or I can use that for a triangle location, or I can use the dagger, and the dagger allows me to go up to the council area. So let's say, as an example, I play this, I put my 1 agent here, and I play the dagger, and that allows me to move my other agent up top into the council area. So when I'm here, this also means that I got to move 2 of my garrison into the conflict area. So down here where the conflict is, I got to do that because I'm here. But that's also going to leave me with these 3 cards in my hand. So in the reveal phase, you're going to look at this bottom area, and that's going to tell you, what do you get? What comes from that? So as an example here, I would get 5 persuasion And I use this to buy the cards that are available from the deck. Simple enough. So the cards that you don't use in the agent round, the agent phase, are going to be used in the reveal phase. And whatever you have. So for an example here, if I left this for the reveal phase, this would give me an extra combat strength, and it would also increase my influence with the Fremen. So I would maybe decide, hey, well, you know, if I'm going to be engaging in conflict this turn, I might want to use that to increase my strength, my power. So that's how those cards work. So you're looking at this area here, because that's going to tell you where you can actually use it during the agent phase. You'll look here to see if you get any special bonus in the agent phase, and then you look down here if you reveal this in the reveal phase. So give you an example, Duncan, Idaho would allow you to go to one of these kind of purplish circles here. Of course, if you could pay, so for an example, you could go to, well, it's out of sight, but this has just the little circle. Here you would need 2 water and this, and here you need to have at least 2 influence with the Fremen and this. So you would also be able to spend 1 water to get a garrison and draw a card. Now, if you decided you weren't going to use it during the agent phase, then you're going to get a water and 2 combat strength. It's very interesting how these cards all are very unique. Outside of, so for an example, the Spice Must Flow, that's a reserve card. So that costs you 9 water. It is not 9 influence or persuasion, I should say. But you automatically get a victory point, and every time you play it, you get a spice. And spice has a lot of different uses in the game. Arrakis Liaison, basically giving you 2 persuasion. And then Fold Space is interesting because it's going to allow you to go anywhere. But you trash the card when you play it. So that's one of the reasons why you don't normally run out of Fold Space cards, because when you use it, they get trashed. So essentially, that is how you play Dune Imperium. You're going to continue having your cards. You're going to draw your 5 cards. You're going to play a couple of them in the agent phase in order to send your agents out. Then you're going to have your reveal phase, where whatever other cards you have available to you. So for an example, if you went to the research station, you would draw 3 cards. You'd be able to use these 3 cards in the reveal phase. You could actually use any of the 3 cards if this was your first agent you sent out. And you're going to have your reveal phase, and you're going to reveal whatever special effect you've got. So it's either persuasion, which will allow you to buy the cards, or increase your combat strength, which I'm going to show you in just a second. We're going to zoom back out for that. All right, there we go. So back out here, I'm going to actually just push this up a little bit. So this is where the conflict takes place. So we already know this is our conflict card for the turn, so that's what we're vying for. So what we would end up doing is we're all going to have our little combat markers down here on 0. And as we would be playing cards or going to locations which allow us to put garrison out here, let's say, as an example, let's say this is what it ends up with. So with combat, what you're going to do here is you're simply going to look at what's out here, and then everybody's going to go around and they're going to play intrigue cards if they have intrigue cards. Now, these are cards that give you kind of special abilities. So once you've got your combat strength from your garrisons here that count as 2 points each, plus any sort of combat strength increases, right? So if I had this that I had resolved, say I'm the red player here, I'd be at 4. Now I'd be at 6. We also have these intrigue cards that can be played during combat. Like so, ambush, give me 4 more strength. Private army, if I spend 2 spice, I could get an additional 5 strength. And we've got these all take place at different times. So we've got combat, we've got cards that are played during the agent phase, and these intrigue cards are earned. So there's different ways to get them. For an example, like secrets, right? If we sent somebody over here to influence the Bene Gesserit, we could get an influence card. If we come in second in the conflict, we're going to get 2 coin and an intrigue card. So you're not going to see a ton of these intrigue cards throughout the game, but they are really interesting, and they really add a lot to the replayability of Dune Imperium. So once you've got your score for combat, you're going to just go, okay, so, well, red player came in first, so they get a victory point. And yes, if you notice, I've got the 4 different little cylinders here, and they're on 1. That's because with 4 players, you're going to start at 1. To be honest, you can start at 0 if you want a little bit longer game. So I would have gotten the one victory point. Green player would have been second. They would have gotten the intrigue card and 2 Solare. And then the yellow player would have gotten 2 Solare. Then next thing you do is you just go, okay, what needs a marker? Well, all 3 of these would get a marker for the next turn. And then you basically just do a little bit of a cleanup. You take your agents, you dispose of your garrisons because they're basically lost once they're assigned, and you move on to the next turn. Game moves along nice and quickly once everybody understands how to play it. Understanding how to play it is not difficult whatsoever. Understanding how to play it well, that is a different story. So let's swing on over to the other camera. I am going to share my final thoughts and give Dune Imperium a review score. All right, so I mentioned this right off the bat. We started taking a look at the game board, especially the game board. Graphically, the presentation is not going to knock your socks off. We've got cubes. We've got, little water drops. Yeah, okay. The board itself is kind of ho-hum. Let's be honest. It's not most exciting game board you've ever seen. Keep in mind, Direwolf also are the designers. They're the creators for Clank, a deck building adventure. And that game is a blast. But if you think about it, that game graphically doesn't blow you away either. It's the gameplay that is memorable. And that is the same situation here with Dune Imperium. The artwork on the cards, I think is fine. I think the artwork's cool. I think this is nice. Another nice little addition is if you flip over the different player faction leaders, you get the sequence of play and everything. And nicely enough, you got 8. You only have up to 4 players, so you always have these available. So whatever ones aren't being used, Just simply use this as your player aid. There are rules, special rules for 2-player games with an NPC house. There are solitaire rules, which also utilize the NPC house. I have not played them. I got to be honest. I have not played them at all. The rules themselves, very, very easy to understand. Plenty of examples in here as well. Read through this twice, knew exactly what I was doing. Now, that doesn't mean that when we started playing, I did it any good. But at least I had an idea what I was doing. So, all in all, what I really like about this, I think this is a really nicely done design. Is anything like, oh, wow, I've never seen that before? Absolutely not. But the way it's been mashed together, I think really, really works. And if you kind of ignore the almost themeless game board, if you're familiar with Dune, the Frank Herbert story, it does give you the vibe of that because you're all vying for control of different things and you have to balance a lot of things out. You need to be able to influence the various different factions, but at the same time, you can't ignore the planet of Arrakis. You can't ignore the Fremen. You can't ignore the councils. So really, really nicely done. It is going to take a few games for you to play before some of the strategies start to unlock for you, because this is really a game of balancing. And one of the first things that you really have to look at to balance is if you've got a really good card for either that you can use for both the agent phase as well as the reveal phase, right there, you got to figure out, okay, so which one, what do I use it for? It's in my hand. Which one am I? I don't know. So I really, really like the decision making that this game brings on. It doesn't look like it would be, something that would be like, oh, wow. Huh. I mean, I don't want to say there's analysis paralysis because there really isn't. The game does flow like the spice quickly enough. So I really, really dig that. But I also like that there's more meat on the bones of this design than might be initially apparent. I got to be honest, the gang and I really love Dune Imperium. And I played with people who had absolutely no idea what Dune is. They weren't even familiar with the David Lynch film. How can you be a science fiction fan and never seen that? I'm not saying it's fantastic. I think it's underrated. And they had a blast. And they were getting the theme of the game, that it's not only just battling over Arrakis itself, but you're also battling over who's going to influence these various different factions. And of course, that's how you're going to be earning victory points. So it's almost like a little bit of a mini engine builder at the same time as you're getting the various different resources built up as well. Only complaint I've got is graphically, it's not eye-popping, especially the game board. And I know a lot of people out there, I have seen comments about this on Board Game Geek, and they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy that game. Game board, I hate the look of the game board. I'll tell you what, ignore the game board. It's the gameplay. Isn't that why you buy a game? You buy the game for the gameplay, the experience of playing that game. And I got to say, Dune Imperium is one of my favorite games that I have played in 2020. Hands down. Really, really do enjoy it. I got to ding it, though, for 2 reasons. Number one, yes, the game board is not spectacular at all. One of the gang said, man, that's an ugly board. I don't think it's ugly. I just don't think it's super exciting. So I gotta ding it for that. And then there is also the expansion to Dune to pretty the game up. which is actually more expensive than the core game itself. The core game is going to carry an MSRP of $50. The like cosmetic expansion with miniatures and all these other things is $55. And it does look really cool. And I would love an opportunity to take a peek at it and see, how it really, will like boost the beauty of this game. But it's a little disappointing that you have to spend $105 for that visual experience as opposed to maybe having kind of, met somewhere in the middle, included some of that stuff in a base game, maybe charge $70 for it. I don't know. So I got to ding it for that a little bit too, but not, not a lot. So as I mentioned, gameplay wise, this is a lot of fun. I have enjoyed myself. I feel thematically it does work very well as far as the gameplay. Visually on the game board, not so much. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I give Dune Imperium a 9 out of 10. It would have been higher, except for the meh game board and the fact that if you want a really pretty experience, you're going to have to shell out more money than the base game costs. All right, that is it for this time out. Let me remind you, if you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. If you do subscribe, ding that bell, because not only will it let you know when I upload videos such as this, it'll also tell you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday through Thursday nights right here on YouTube. So I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, as I wrap up all of my videos during this never-ending pandemic, I certainly do hope all of you out there are being smart and staying safe. Oh, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, if you'd like to subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel, by all means, click right here. And if you'd like to check out one of our recent live streams, click right up top. And if you want to roll the dice and see what the algorithm for YouTube recommends, click right here. And of course, thank you once again for watching. And gang, please stay safe and wear a mask.